Hey there, my friend. Steve Gamlin here, the vision board guy. Got a very special conversation I want to have today. You know what? There are 8 areas of life that I teach in my vision board mastery learning program, all part of the Life Wheel, pretty common tool in the personal development world. And we're talking about your physical health, your emotional well being, your closest relationships, your core values, your faith and spirituality, your connection to the world in real ways, your emotional well being, and then, of course, your job and your money. And when I see people's vision boards, a lot of times, I see what I call the vision board starter kit. It's a stack of material things. Now, many people I talked to said, I wish I had a better relationship, but yet they don't set that as one of their goals. So, all that being said, this is why I'm having this conversation today. My guest is a good friend of mine. Gosh, we've been friends for close to 20 years now. When we first met, let's just say both of us on a scale of 1 to 10 had relationships that were on a good day, maybe a 3 or a 4. And we've both gone through the ringer, we've gone through the fire, we've come out on the other side with not only better versions of ourselves, but amazing relationships. And Scott Powers is going to be the other half of this conversation today, sharing some tips, tactics, and strategies to help you wherever you may be in your relationships, or whatever you might be setting for goals. Remember, that's an important part of your life. Set goals for your relationship. So you're going to hear a whole bunch of value from Scott today. So Scott Powers, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Yeah, Steve, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. It's funny. So, quick little note: my brother just celebrated his 20-year anniversary. The DJ at that wedding was you, if you remember that. So that's how
Yes, I
long we've known
do.
each other. We've known each other longer than 20 years.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't realize it was 20 years already. Well, tell him I've retired, so I'm not doing his renewal of vows celebration anytime soon, but I'll attend, but I'm not going to be the DJ.
Perfect.
So why don't you explain a bit what you and your partner Janae do to help work with couples and even individuals to either improve their relationships or set up better foundations? And of course, some of the things that people need to be thinking about if the relationship is important enough to them, which I believe it should be, to include it as part of their goals.
Yeah. So, Steve, as you even mentioned before, I'm not like a natural expert at relationships.
Mhm.
I learned through hardship and pain and life experiences. I went through a divorce. At the time, I threw a lot of effort into the relationship. I realized kind of like what I didn't know, and threw a lot of money and energy and time into learning relationships. Now, that didn't obviously didn't work out the way at the time I wanted to. However, I met Janae. She's an amazing therapist, and she was working with this couple, and we were just getting to know each other. And Janae's like, "Hey, I'm stuck. This guy's stuck. I think he needs a male counterpart to hold him accountable. Will you help me with this couple?" And at first, I'm just like, "No, what? There's no way I can do this, right? Like, I'm not the expert." But she convinced me to give it a shot, and we worked with this couple. This is about 5.5 years ago. We worked with this couple. There's some trust issues in the relationship. Within 6 months, they renewed their vows, right? So we took them from zero on the edge of getting a divorce to renewing their vows. They end up having another child. He found his dream job, and they've been doing amazing. So we're just like, you know what, we have something here. We have a business, and we have something that can really help people. So we started coaching couples together, and we do 2-on-2. We'll meet with the couples. Janae and I will meet with a couple, and then the following week, I meet with the husband. She meets with the wife. Then we come back together, look at what we've learned, and continue to make progress that way. And we feel like in that our formula, both sides are really heard and seen in that sense, and we can get beyond some of the stories, right, that couples create that where they get stuck. Yeah.
100%. And I love that you pointed out that, you don't just have these certificates hanging on your wall. You didn't hop on the wide world of the internet and get paper certified to do this. It's what I call the dings, dents, and scars graduate program. We've gone through this, which qualifies, as Ed Milet often says, you're most qualified to help the person you used to be. So that's what you're doing, and that's the approach that you are taking here.
Yeah, I think for both of us too, we realized what are the things that don't work. I mean, we get a lot of people who have come to us after 3 or 4 different therapists or marriage counselors and really frustrated, and we're their last resort. And I think we took our own experiences and looked at what didn't work in those scenarios and to do things better. Because our success rate is very high. Now, granted, we're getting buy-in from both people. We don't want someone who's going to get dragged there to come in. But I think what happens is in traditional therapy or marriage counseling is you sit there and you tell the story of what's wrong, right? Everyone's an expert in what doesn't work. And we're just unpacking this person did this, well, this person did that, and everyone walks away after an hour and still feels terrible, right? So for us, we want to break through those stories that honestly don't even really matter, right? Because what most people are lacking is connection in their relationship. One of the theories we have is, a lot of traditional advice is, oh, communicate, communicate, communicate. Well, if you've ever been, in an emotional response or triggered, or, it's really hard to get those words out. And couples at the beginning have always, if they couldn't communicate at the beginning, they wouldn't be a couple, right? So let's get through some of the things that are coming up and some of these emotions by dropping underneath and finding ways to connect first, right? And then communicate. So we want to connect, we want to regulate and connect from a better place. And then from that place, we can communicate. The words come a lot easier when when our nervous system is calm and we're regulated and have a connection with the person that we love.
Yeah, I think too many people they let all those layers of dust settle. This person said this or did this or did this. And it's got to be pretty amazing when you and Janae see that spark where maybe you can guide somebody back to what they loved about each other in the first place before they allowed all of this frustration and conflict to lay on top of it and kind of stifle those sparks of the old communications. And see, I hear it a lot when people say, "Oh, Steve, we used to go on dates at least once a month." And I said, "Well, great, that's amazing. How long has it been since you did that?" "Well, I've been married for 17 years, so probably about 16 years." And I'll just make simple suggestions. I don't go to the depth you do, but I'll say, okay, would you consider going on one date this month and letting, go on two, actually. Let one person pick one location, the other person picks the other location. And each time, I want you to take a picture of yourselves with whatever is in the background, just to show so you know where you were, of the two of you sitting next to each other and smiling for a photo. And after both of those, tell me how you feel. And almost every time I see the smiles and I'll ask, are those real smiles? Oh my gosh, we haven't sat without the phones, without the kids, without the pressure, without the whatever in so long. So is that something that you two hear a lot? And if so, what are some of the pattern interrupts and some of the tips, tactics, and strategies you offer to couples who might be remembering, hey, we used to be at this level, but now we're kind of down here.
Yeah, I mean, I think carving out time for each other is really important. There's so many things that pull us away in different directions, where there's kids, schedules, phones, jobs, stress, right? And having that time to really that's carved out for connection. And then I think on top of that, Steve, right? Because we had a couple at one point, they were doing date night every week, but they couldn't stand each other, but they would use it to catch up on logistics, right? So I think the next step on that is like, where can we be curious? 'Cause I think when you've been in a relationship for a while, you think you know the person, right? We start making more assumptions on what they want, what they desire, who they are. I think just getting curious, like start asking those questions and learn even more about the person that you live with, you love with, you do life with, right? Because there's always stuff there to ask those questions and get really curious. And I feel, that's intimacy is getting to know someone at an even deeper level and dropping the assumptions that everything that needs to be known about this person.
I love that. And my wife Tina and I have been together now for more than 17 years. And people talk sometimes, well, this person doesn't speak my love language and I have no idea what theirs is. We know what each other's love language is because we have been vulnerable enough to ask and also vulnerable enough. We do groceries together pretty much every week. And one day we get home from the grocery store and I just looked at Tina as we were sitting on the couch waiting for dinner. And I said, you know what I really love? And she looked at me and she thinks I'm going to say something weird. She goes, what? I said, we were at the grocery store today and you wrapped your arm inside mine and you leaned your head on my arm. I'd say shoulder, but I'm 6'2" and she's about 5'4". I said, you leaned your head on my arm while we were walking. I said, you know what? That that to me is love. And I said, I just wanted to let you know that. So now every single time we go groceries, at least once, she'll lean her head on my arm. And she's not a super public display of affection person, but she does that every single time. And I I just I look forward to going grocery shopping together because of that.
Yeah.
So I would imagine you must hear some pretty interesting comments from people who have no idea what each other's love language is because they've never been authentic or vulnerable enough to ask or to admit it to the other person.
Oh, totally. Right. And to have those conversations about the relationship even, right? And like what do you really want? Like what do you desire? Because those are going to change over time. Like, the person that we might have been 17 years ago, right, is going to change over time. Those tastes may change, or desires may change. I mean, even my son is 16, right? So like his favorite food has changed over time. Like, one day he doesn't want to eat it anymore. I mean, we're all human, right? So things are going to change over time, and asking those questions. And Steve, one thing I love that you just brought up, right? Where Tina did something for you and you showed appreciation for that very specific behavior,
Yeah.
right? And it can't be understated how important appreciation is in a relationship. So here's the thread for people at home, right? Tina did, there's a behavior that you really enjoyed, impacted you. You showed appreciation for it. She knows how important it is for you now, and now she's repeated the behavior, right? So what we reward, we're going to get more of, right? We're going to reward that behavior by showing appreciation. Most people, again, are experts in what doesn't work, and so they complain about their partner, or they complain about things that weren't done, versus like, hey, where can we bring more positive energy and active appreciation? It's really one of the things we lay out for our clients is that you got to start. This is something daily that can shift the energy in a relationship in a relatively short time, right?
Mm.
And it may be awkward at first for people who haven't done this before. I had a gentleman, he said, hey, you gotta write a note or something every single day to your wife to start shifting the energy, right? Show some appreciation. Be really specific, not just you're a great mom, right? Like, get really detailed so that she can feel seen and appreciated. The first time he did it, she acted really weird. Because he has never done that before.
Yep.
And he wanted to quit. He's like, this isn't working. It's like, dude, you've done this twice, right? Like, we gotta create some new patterns in this relationship because the old patterns aren't working. And appreciation, just showing, and gratitude is one of the quickest pathways to create positive energy in the relationship. So that's a great example. I love that you brought that up, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. And it's funny too. It reminded me of a couple of years ago. There were three gentlemen I spoke to in the course of a week, and it was just funny to have the same conversation with each. They were kind of talking about how their relationship sometimes it was hot or cold or a little turbulent, and they were just they weren't really communicating well. And I asked each one, "Does your wife enjoy a cup of coffee to start off the day?" And all three said yes. I said, "Great. Tomorrow morning, if you have a Keurig or something similar, find her favorite flavor pod, put it in the machine, make sure there's enough water because, boy, isn't that a pain in the butt in the morning when you want your coffee and it says you need water. And put her favorite mug on the machine. If you set the timer, great. If not, just leave a note saying, hey, babe, your coffee's all set. Just push the button. Have a great day. Love you." And all three of them did it. Now, two of them I've lost touch with. One of them is still doing this every morning. And at least 2 or 3 days a week, he receives a text on his phone about 2 or 3 in the afternoon saying, I love getting up in the morning and having my coffee ready. Thank you. And this is a couple years worth now. And he is still doing that. She's still appreciating it, which makes him want to make that effort every day.
Yeah, it's like a positive reinforcement loop, right? Like, we have the
Yeah.
negative ones, the negative loops that set us further apart, and the positive ones that bring us closer together.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just start stacking those, right? We can get some positive energy, then maybe it's an appreciation, and maybe it's a act of love we do every day. And another thing that's really important, I think, with couples that do really well and the couples who struggle, is having rituals and agreements, right, that are going to bring you closer together. So having little rituals like that, for Janae and I, one thing we've been really good about in 6 years is telling each other at night, like, what do we appreciate about each other from that day? We'll go through like, maybe probably like three things, and then we switched it. But now we're using an app called Paired, where it asks each other questions, and it's kind of fun. We wanted to try. We're in like a 30-day, hey, let's try this out, but these little rituals that bring you closer together and that you kind of live by, that become your habits. Those rituals become your habits become your life, right? So if we don't do it, we're defaulting to what's automatic, and our brain is always going to have a negative bias. That's 10,000 years of evolution. Our brain is designed to look for danger and what's wrong. So that's kind of our default status. And we have to be, this is what I've learned, over these years, Steve, is you got to be really intentional about your relationship and intentional in doing the positive things that, again, create harmony, that create connection and bring us closer together.
Now, for somebody watching or listening to this conversation right now, who may be one of those people who we see on Facebook a lot, in a relationship, it's complicated. Single, in a relationship, it's complicated. Single, all in a 2-week period. For somebody who might be saying, I always wind up falling in love with the same type of person, or somebody who might be in one of those relationships right now, what are some simple actions or simple thoughts that they could be having to at least A, recognize, but B, start to map out a better version of themselves? It's not a better relationship that we have to go for, because we're going to stay the same if we don't make conscious decisions to change. And you nailed it perfectly by saying our habits. We change our habits, we change our outcomes, we get more consistent, we build our confidence, we believe it's okay to be this way. I've got some stronger habits in my relationship with Tina than I've ever had in any relationship in my life. And people say, oh, you're lucky. I'm like, kiss my butt. It's habits. It's intentional. This is not luck. You and Janae are not luck. We are intentional. So if there's somebody who's getting tired of that merry-go-round of the frustrating relationships, or maybe they're taking it out on themselves saying, well, I don't deserve somebody good. What are a few, and that's kind of a bigger net I just cast for you. What are some of the things that people can start to think of? And in the course of the work I do, what would be your vision for a really good relationship that you could be a partner in?
Yeah, man, I think the most important thing to remember for a lot of us, especially if we struggle in relationships, or anyone out there, is that most relationship skills are survival skills that have been passed down from our family, right? So it's survival skills dressed up as relationship skills. We get caught in these family cycles because most of our issues in relationship is how we receive love as a child. It all comes down to this. And if we can start looking at our patterns, right? And it's painful to go do the internal work, right? You're either going to have the pain of internally looking at yourself and saying, wow, these are my patterns and they don't work, or the pain of being an automatic pilot and getting the results that you get from that. There's one of two choices. And the pain of looking at ourselves has a reward of, once we're aware of how we behave or how we push people away. I come from the belief that we all show up, we all have some dysfunction relationally. Now, I do feel like the more trauma someone has in their life and their childhood, they're more dysfunctional they're going to be. But we all do things that push people that we love away from us. So the more we can be aware of that first and say, wow, what have I repeated? What can I take responsibility for? And then how can I improve it? So I think one, that's like the first step. Then if you're in a relationship, right, is being willing to have that hard conversation of, hey, this isn't going in the direction I want it to go. I have a vision for something better. And I think, I'll be honest with you, as a husband, I think that's really powerful, because most relationship, therapy or whatever, it's led by the wife and the husband gets dragged along. I mean, the studies are showing, I think it's like 70 or 80%. But when the husband can initiate and say, hey, I want a better relationship, there's a power to that. And I think for men, right, like it's another place we can lead and have that vision for our relationship and have that higher purpose. It's really powerful and helps couples like get through some really hard times and greater growth. So, and for a lot of us, like you and I, probably have the same personalities. Like I'm a conflict avoider by nature, right? Let's just be happy and get through it. But being able to have these hard conversations, it takes a little bit of practice. It takes a little bit of, regulation. Sometimes even Janae and I, if we're going to have a hard conversation, sometimes we'll just hold hands. It's kind of like a way to co-regulate with each other. But then setting up some expectations, like, do we want the same thing? And is this an alignment issue or is this a skill issue, right? Because there's some people like, maybe we'll never be aligned. And I think for some people, they wait so long that, resentment builds up and maybe there isn't a point of no return, or there's a point of no return where it does become an alignment issue. But a lot of times it's just a skill issue. We've hit our ceiling. The things that we've done to survive, to get us to a lot of our lives is also that puts a cap on our growth, right? So those things that kept us going and motivated us, at certain points in our life no longer serve us. So we need to grow together to help the relationship grow. Because in nature, everything's either growing or decaying. That's nature, right? Relationships, there's no exception.
And for the guys listening to this right now saying, you know what, that does sound like a good idea and I should do it. Don't go asking your buddies for advice. You're hanging out with your bonehead buddies who are saying, no, you're the king, you're in charge, you're doing all this. Hey, look, if you can't talk to them about it, reach out to somebody like Scott and Janae to have a conversation, to learn more about how they can help you. I mean, I know for years now, Tina and I have been together 17 years. So once in a while, I'll be hanging out with a group or I haven't seen it in a while, and they say, how you doing? I said, better than ever. Man, this is my favorite version of me so far, head over heels in love, all these years later. And there's sure as hell, there's one who goes, no, see, you got to stop with all that kindness crap. You got to stop that. You got to put your foot. And I'm like, dude, why? You're a miserable SOB. You always have been. You've been negative since I've known you. You've been married 5 times. How many times you want to give away half your crap? Why don't you just start by being a better person and stop having the same relationship over and over? So to the guys, stop going to your buddies for advice. Talk to somebody like Scott or Janae or both of them. If you want to have a relationship that rewards you throughout your life, that makes you a better person, makes you happier, is a big part of the big configuration of all the goals in your life, I highly recommend you reach out to Scott and Janae. So Scott, as we wrap it up, how can people reach out and learn more about you and possibly get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook. I do have a Twitter account, which is Scott Powers, Men Save Your Marriage. Because I think my handle's Powers of Men. But I am going to be running a free mastermind. I'm trying to get 5 guys together. We'll do some in-person coaching for free, kind of get a feel for what we do. It's kind of my beta pilot program. So for anyone interested, love to have them get in and join that and check that out. And we do have a Rekindle Connection Facebook page too, that Janae and I have in there. There's a lot of great videos and resources that we put together as well.
Perfect. And as we come to a close, what are some of the thoughts that people could be having? This could be men or women, equal opportunity audience here. If they are struggling and frustrated, but aren't quite sure what direction they want to go, is there a tip or a tactic or a bit of advice you could ask people? I know in my vision board work, it's understand where you are right now. Use that as your point A and then figure out where you want to be. So when it comes to relationships, what's a bit of advice you could offer up to people to at least have a better understanding of who they are, where they are, and what they can do moving forward?
Yeah, I think one, understanding that if you're not happy in your relationship, you're not truly happy, because it spills down to everything else in your life. So if you think the younger version of me would kind of, put that off to the side and focus on work or other endeavors, right? Like that relationship needs to be a priority. Otherwise, it's going to spill over at some point into every aspect of your life. I think that'd be number one. Then 2 is, just getting an idea of like, what do you want out of this relationship? What will make you happy? How do you want to feel in this? And regards to love and connection and intimacy, what is going to fulfill you? Because like I said, most people are experts in what doesn't work. And it's really easy to say, that she doesn't do this or he doesn't do that, and I don't feel seen or appreciated. But to give what you want first is I think critical, right? Like that's part of the relationship, is to, give a part of yourself to the other person. And if you can do that first and hope you get hope there's reciprocation, that is the natural law. And if you're not getting it back, then to be like, okay, maybe we got some bigger work to do and we have to dig a little bit deeper here. But that's where I would start. Like, give what you want to receive first and be the one to initiate change.
Oh, perfect. Love that. Scott Powers, thank you so much. Please give my best to Janae, and I look forward to catching up with you both sometime very soon.
Love it, Steve. Thank you.